Behind me is the Muriwai Surf Club. Pretty cool place. Amazing location and quite a unique building. Beautiful spot. So I want to do a video, a big thank you to David Icke. I became aware of David Icke in 2000 actually. In 2000, when I was living in Vancouver, one of my flatmates and friends, Corey Stovin, gave me the book I Am Free, I Am Me, with David Icke naked on the front with his doodle showing, with a little sticker over it, censored, in Canada where I was in Vancouver. And I read the book I Am Free, I Am Me, and it opened up my heart and my conscious awareness, and my sense of expansion, my conscious expansion really took off. I'd already entered into a place of conscious awakening in the early 90s, but that book took me to a whole nother level. And who I was working for at the time, Suzanne Castange, whose lifelong passion was to catch pedophiles, elite pedophiles. There was a correlation between what I was learning about what David Icke was writing about, and I'd go back to read The Biggest Secret and other books from the early 90s after I Am Free, I Am Me, and get a great detail about the nature of who was running the world and what was running our reality. But in 2000, I would be at the Orpheum Theatre in the front row. If you watch the video from Prison to Paradise, I think you can still get it maybe as a DVD, or it might be live on YouTube, or you'd find a copy of it somewhere. At the very end of the video, me, my best friend, closest friend Aaron, Haley and Corey Stovin all stand up first and start giving David Icke a standing ovation. Then everybody else follows us. It was at the Orpheum Theatre in Vancouver. I met David Icke's crew and David briefly after the Orpheum Theatre performance show workshop. 10.5 hours, almost 12, almost 11 hours of him speaking. Extraordinary experience, life-changing in so many ways. The last 2.5 hours of that almost 11-hour talk were probably some of the most inspiring 2 hours at the time in my life. Inspiring and also illuminating for me in regards to living my life from my heart, right? And knowing that there was a way to live my life very differently than the way I was at the time I was living my life. So as a consequence of that, moving through the next 25 years of my life, I have been drawn to read David Icke's books. I've seen him talk two more times in New Zealand, in Auckland. I've seen him talk twice in Auckland in the last 25 years. And I have been enthralled by what he's presented and what he is presenting to the collective for consciousness expansion, the nature of reality, and of course, most importantly for me, how to approach my point of awareness in this reality, in this simulation. And I do feel as though there's been a massive correlation for me in regards to what I've learned over the years and what I've channeled through my own work and my own books at Ohoakebooks, Ohoake books. What I was channeling and what I was bringing into the collective consciousness of our reality within the simulation, what I was writing about for so many years, I have ducked in and moved in and kind of moved through this process of information coming from David Icke, but also been channeling information which I've seen, like for example, I've just finished the reveal of the David Icke reality trilogy, and some of the information I got out of this book, received from this book, I wrote about in 2014 in the book United. Some of the information I channeled in that book with Amon Sueño, a part of myself from another level of existence, infinite reality, a part of my spirit, and another body that I worked with to write that book and write many books with, many novels with, Amon Sueño. I read about that information in this book. I think it was published in 2023, 24, I think was published, this book, The Reveal. I read about it, what David Icke was saying, basically the same information in this book. And I wrote about it in 2014 and published that book, United, in 2016, which bookends my Shadow and Soul series. Entwined is the first novel, which is this end of the bookend, and United bookends the Shadow and Soul series, all the books in between that I've written, with all parts of myself from other levels of existence, are all part of the jigsaw puzzle, the big picture, as David Icke would say, crossing from the corpus callosum, left-hand side of the brain, into the right-hand side of the brain, and bridging and moving back and forth, right? But without a doubt, David Icke's work for me, this book has been instrumental for me to, not to remind myself, but to come to the realization that I am my heart vortex, and my infinite self, as David Icke calls it, lives, it's from its point of awareness in the simulation from my heart vortex. This book has been instrumental. I'm holding it up again. This book has been instrumental for me. Now, I wasn't going to read the reality trilogy. I wasn't going to read it at all. I didn't feel drawn to it. And then this year, about 3 months ago, I had a really strong clairaudient message: read the trilogy. So I did. The Trap, the Dream, and the Reveal. I read all three. And as a consequence of that, I got a real deep dive, but also a reaffirmation of what I already knew in my heart. And it's given me what I need to be able to move in the simulation and bust it open with my heart vortex, living from my heart vortex. And this year for me, living in Auckland, 2025, Auckland region, has been so insane, so intense, and in so many ways I've been challenged. And I feel as though, I've made a video about this before, as though when you come into a place of living in your heart vortex, the AI simulation, which I wrote about as well in 2014, the AI controlled simulation by its interdimensional force, which for me, with David Icke's information and my own channeling work, I felt as though the archons were a form of interdimensional AI. And I wrote about that in 2014 in the book United. And that this interdimensional AI can realize, has the power, has the power to be able to recognize when there's rogue elements within its control system. And when they has a rogue element, a rogue algorithm within the control system, within the simulation, that is being a level of consciousness that's living in its heart vortex, when it can perceive that, its algorithm within its simulation, it sends in the agent smiths, it sends programs into the algorithm which fuck with your level of existence. But not only that, they also fuck with your everyday life in a way that looks to bring you back into the system, into the heavier dense energies of your perception and your point of awareness, and therefore back into the loosh farm where you generate heavier dense emotions due to the nature of the circumstances you find yourself in. And this year for me has been exactly that. As much as I sit in my heart vortex and sit in my heart this year, what I've experienced has been an opportunity and a choice to make better decisions around how I choose to respond to situations which have challenged me in so many ways. And I can see, for me, in my perception, that's the simulation which is interactive with us and conscious, looking to do its best to bring me back into a place where I'm back in the loosh farm, and therefore, by being back in the loosh farm, presenting and emanating heavier dense frequencies and energies that feedback into the system, and I fall back into the groove. With most people who don't have that point of awareness, as David Icke quite clearly shows us in his books and presents to us. And I think one of the most important aspects of David Icke's work is that he always says, question everything he says, and there's always more to know. And in the dream, his perception is, from what I recall, is that our point of awareness is in 5D, which is laser focused through the lower astral, where the mind is, and then into the simulation. And we believe, as we're wearing a headset, that this holographic form is real, where it's just an illusion. And this is, in the simulation itself, this frequency band we're in, which is the hack of prime reality, we believe it to be real. We believe it to be, we identify with our jobs, our sexes, our persuasion, our religions, etc., etc., etc. But for me, I cannot express my gratitude enough to David Icke for what he's done, for how much he's changed my life experience and my perception of my life experience and my point of awareness in the last 25 years of my existence within this simulated reality, if that's what we are truly experiencing, right? And for me, it makes, for my own, the correlations that I've had in the last year after reading these books, especially the correlations and information that it's presented itself to me, the situations, the perceptions I've had, the intuitive knowings and downloads that I've had since reading the trilogy, the reality trilogy, the trap, the dream, the reveal, have been synonymous with the fact that, to me, in my perception, from my point of awareness, I know where I am in regards to where my point of awareness is. I know who I am, all that is, ever has been, never will be, and I know now that living from my heart vortex and identifying with my heart vortex, and in my meditations I have every morning, I do meta meditation, which is loving kindness meditation. When I sit in my heart vortex and I put my point of awareness in my heart vortex and therefore feel into the level of my point of awareness beyond the astral, when I feel that sense of expansion, I know, I feel, I resonate from that place, and I bring that energy into my everyday existence, moment to moment existence, my point of awareness, from that place of the fifth dimension and infinity. And by being there and doing the work from that place and bringing that energy into the simulation, I feel like I'm hacking into the simulation and quietly just bringing that energy in and flooding the simulation with that energy. And as a consequence of that, like I said before, the AI, that interdimensional AI, can see me as a rogue algorithm and is sending in its agent smiths. It's sending in these experiences to put them into my, not necessarily timeline, my point of awareness, to experience these situations that are very challenging, but also opportunities to make decisions based upon living from my life from here rather than in my head or my gut, the emotional or the logical, rational world, but finding the balance of living in my heart vortex, perceiving from my heart vortex, and allowing that energy to permeate through my mind, through my head, the rationale, and my emotion, and finding that balance. I can move from that place calmly and often humorously. So I want to thank David Icke personally for everything he has brought into this level of existence. David, you have been instrumental in my own work, my own published works at Ohoakebooks. You have been instrumental in my life in regards to my consciousness expansion, and you have been instrumental in me in bringing much laughter and humour into my life. And what a privilege to have seen you speak 3 times in the last 25 years. What a privilege it is to be able to read your books and to gain so much information. And most importantly, I mean this sincerely, you are the only author in this field of consciousness expansion that says question everything and there's always more to know, which to me sets you apart from the rest of everybody else that I've ever read within this field of consciousness expansion. And for that I truly appreciate, because it allows me to discern for myself what I take from all that you reveal and what you share in regards to your perceptions. And for me, that is where I want to come from, a place of curiosity. And that curiosity, I discover so much about everything. And in that, for me, is one of the greatest reasons and the most important reasons why I feel like my level of point of awareness in infinity said to me quite clearly, read the reality trilogy. And I did, and I'm so grateful. So thank you, David. Mā te ua. I'll see you again soon.